Sam Vaknin last night released a video called "Client, This Is Sam Vaknin," and you probably should watch that first before you watch this video. So I'll put a link below, or you can just go and look up Sam's channel, and you'll see it's there. Let's just take a second to voice appreciation for the fact said that it was dissed by a client. Good use of the word diss. The setup and the framework of the video is that Sam is looking for honest feedback that is free of ad hominem and personal attacks about a situation he experienced with a client. A lady actually gave up on him during coaching, during counseling sessions, and effectively fired him. And her amounted to saying that she was frustrated that he wasn't supportive enough and that he didn't make her feel good like the other coaches and therapists she'd been to previously did, and that he would do well to learn from them. And that she was exasperated with that. I think that Sam's release of this video now should be a watershed moment. It will be a watershed moment for those who've got the brains for it, because some people don't, and that's just the way it is. And the online narcissistic abuse community, which I am, relatively speaking, a newcomer, but we cannot deny that there's been an explosion. I didn't look, but I looked. I didn't look for a couple of years, and then I looked recently, and I'm like, wow, there are a lot of channels talking about cluster B, personality disorders, and psychological abuse and emotional abuse. There is a lot, and these channels all have like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and you know, the views on the videos have like, again, it's in the 100,000. This is huge. I thought it was done about a year and a half ago. I was like, this will pass now. This is like a passing thing. I was wrong. Like it's gotten bigger. And I think a couple of questions come up here. One of the big ones for me would be, what are we doing? Like, what the fuck are we doing? What's the point? What's the point of consuming the videos on that topic? I mean, I've got people here on this channel there. I've had people for 7 years. They were here before I started talking about cluster B, and they'll be here long after I stop. But when you are just in that one thing, that it's mainstream now, where you're just focusing on that, what are you doing? When you consume all that material, why are you consuming it? And then when you make the decision to go to somebody who might be a mental health professional or on the subject, to part with your hard-earned cash for their time, their attention, their analysis, what is the purpose? What are you actually trying to do? So those two questions. And my third question would be more broadly in terms of mental health. And I think now is the time to start asking this. Why seek counseling at all? Why seek psychotherapy at all? Sam is pointing to an effect that has been building in, I would say, in its energy and its significance, for about 4 or 5 years, where I noticed it, where there seemed to be, where I would do coaching with somebody, and afterwards I'd be like, well, it didn't go badly. It wasn't, you know, and they didn't give me bad feedback or anything like that. I was just like, I'm not really sure why that person hired me. It didn't, you know, you just walk away from a conversation, you're going, did we just talk about what I thought? I want to see you on Tuesday at 10:30 at the coffee shop, because I really want to discuss with you my future career. And I know that you have worked for over 10 years as a careers advisor. And then we meet at 10:30 in the coffee shop, and it seems like, whilst we superficially talk about my career, what we're really talking about is, you name it, like my ex-girlfriend, my favorite film that just came out. You just get this sense of like a slow creep, an objective creep away from the main subject. And when that happens, the temptation, and it is a temptation as a human being, because everybody who, whether they're a mental health professional or a life coach and fallacy, same human being, you just have to, is if did they hire me as a coach because they wanted to tell their mates they hired me as a coach? Did they hire me as a coach because it's what they do? Like, there are people who have on the go at the same time, 2, 3 people coaching them. One of my coaches talked to me about a client recently who has he has four coaches. He has a psychiatrist, a psychotherapist, and then 2 life coaches, and Terry is one of them. And I was thinking, why? Like, what's the point? And the reason why we need to be asking what the point is because this is time, this is money, this is not this is not something frivolous. This is not something frittered away. You should really look at why you're doing it. And another thought occurred to me today. If you watch the divorce seminar that I put out, I think it's about 3 hours long, but if you particularly watch Sam's piece, he talks about how cluster B personalities will infect their victims. And if we accept that as a possibility, and you move forward from there, a philosophical level, you then have to accept that if you're in the coaching arena and you're working with people who have been infected by people who are cluster B, then their infection could infect you. So your coaches and so on could end up becoming infected. Buffering, I know, lost connection. Can you guys let me know if I'm back? Ancient Lantern says, your connection is pretty wonky right now. I've just swerved my local Wi-Fi, the Spanish Wi-Fi. I'm back. Mark Ferreira says I'm back. Rachel Wu says I'm back. Yeah, okay, cool. So I wondered if part of my problem was that I was actually recovering myself and didn't have the humility or the self-awareness that I was still in recovery. And then trying to coach, and it was actually reinfecting me and opening old wounds, maybe. Or option 2, this effect, this virus is so powerful that even if you're basically mentally well and okay, it will damage you. It will take you back. It will pull you backwards. And this is something to think about. Another thing that I wanted to say in this video, and just to bring to people's attention, is there is a sadomasochistic cycle that people go through in these kinds of emotionally abusive relationships. And there is a tendency post breakup to continue that cycle, even if the person isn't there anymore because of the imprint that they've left. I'm not saying that people are doing that. I'm just putting it out there and saying, just watch out for this kind of thing, because you will waste your time and you will waste your money if you don't have the intention set of, I am only here to speak to this person, to heal and get on with my life. Because if that intent is pure, you do have that purity of intent, you're way more likely to get where you're trying to go. If your intent is purely, I want to heal and I want to get on with my life and put all this behind me, you will never find yourself saying things like, this coach, this counselor, this therapist doesn't make me feel good. I want to fire them for that. Because what is making you feel good? What's that got to do with anything? One of the things that this lady had said, Sam, was the job of a therapist is to make the client feel better. And I've never actually directly confronted this, even in my own head, but I'm aware that there is an atmosphere that, like, the way people speak to me and the way people speak to my coaches and the way people talk about the process generally, that this is an implication. You, as the coach, should be making me feel better. You know, and let's just put it out there, like, as Sam said, I'm not aware of any school of psychotherapy, and it's certainly not true in psychoanalysis, that making people feel better is the end goal. I think most mental health professionals worth their salt would laugh at that. Like, you will feel better eventually as a symptom of a larger objective. What's the larger objective? Maybe we don't say it enough. You know, all therapy is supposed to bring you back to truth. Somebody was asking me about Jung in the last video, and I said I don't find it very useful. And then people commented saying, this is how you can find Jung useful. And I was like, no, what I should have said is, I don't think he's worthless. I said useful. He's not useful for me when I'm dealing with clients. But in terms of philosophical explorations of mystical experiences and the meaning of synchronicities, of which, you know, I've had plenty in my life. I can't refute their existence or their significance. But even Jung, who's much more mellow and generally depends on which period of Jung you're reading, I suppose, and generally has a slightly softer, less rigid approach, says it is the job of the therapist to lead the client back to truth. That's it. See, we're working on fairly old principles. If you are lost in your delusions and your psychosis, you are not sane. You are not clean, healthy, whole and complete sane. You are insane. You are insane. And you need to be sane. So we bring you from delusion, or one is brought in the therapeutic process from delusion, from psychosis, from neurosis, from perceptions born of emotional dysregulation and trauma, back to truth, back to reality. That's what it is. We would hope, we would dare to dream that where the ego boundaries were damaged, perhaps through childhood trauma or perhaps through adulthood trauma, that the therapeutic process would allow the client to reform those boundaries and to regather their sovereignty for themselves, which is another element to this, another layer to this is, not only do I get the feeling sometimes some clients seem to be thinking that the coach should make them feel better, but that the coach should do it for them. If the coach is doing it for them, that would simply be a continuation of codependency. I can't do it for you. We need your locus of control to be internal. And I think this is one of the key issues. One of them is something to do with humility. So I looked at a list yesterday because I was been talking about defense mechanisms, and it showed a list of things that are better than defense mechanisms. So you have like rationalizations and reaction formations and projective identification are all defense mechanisms. But then it showed me this list of the opposites, and they were like a list of virtues. But it didn't cite any reference. This is on Wikipedia, and it's actually been marked in the article as incorrect because it doesn't cite sources. But the virtues listed were good. I wish there was a source from the psychoanalytic literature for this. One of them was humility. One of them was humility, which is a big thing, a big deal to move forward as an adult and to grow in emotional maturity. And the other one is to internalize the locus of control. So this is the point of There's two major things I want to cover in this video as a response to Sam's. I suspect that what many clients are fighting against is the therapist's implicit desire to relocate the locus of control back into the client. And the client sometimes does not want that. And they react to that. And they don't react well. No, I want you to think about the word make. You know the word fact that we have? And in Portuguese, you have fazer, is to do, is to make. Factore, as a factory. You make these things. Like a fact is actually something that is made. It's factoried. It's, what do you say in Portuguese? I get Spanish. Is it fazer? It's not. It's hacer. Hacer. God, I was going to say fazer. Hacer, which is the same Latin root. So we make it. So what they're saying is no. External force, external object, you make me feel. Make me feel. That is a continuation of the abuse. So in my humble opinion, in my observation, that what this lady was reacting to was Sam's stoic refusal to continue her abuse by feeding back to her not a weird mirror image, like hall of mirrors, distorted image of who she was that would make her feel better in the moment, but to actually give her reality. Because good enough parenting, if this is to be accepted as a kind of parenting, reparenting process, means that you can leave the child with the ability to accept reality as it is, sans, there's some French for you, darlings, I'm feeling pretentious, sans the defense mechanisms. I don't need defense mechanisms. Reality may suck. So then I have another virtue that was listed as an opposite to a defense mechanism, acceptance, humility and acceptance. To go, okay, this sucks, but I can live with it. This sucks, but I can make some compromises and I can live with it. Where sometimes the attitude that we're facing is, this sucks and no, I cannot accept that this sucks. It's unacceptable. That was the first key point that I wanted to make. Is it sounds like, I think this is the key point has two elements to it. One is I think it's a continuation of a sadomasochistic relationship where the client may, I dare to suggest this even though I know people might jump up and down on my head for it, is actually trying to turn the coach or the therapist into the abuser. Not consciously, for the love of God, I am not suggesting for a moment that anybody would try and do that. That nobody's doing that. Nobody's paying to be there to have that done. But unconsciously, because the imprint is so deep that I can't do any sort of intimacy, and a therapeutic or coaching relationship is extremely intimate if it's going to work. I can't do it unless there's an abusive element. The second major point that I wanted to make, and I got to be careful with this one as well, because it could make people jump up and down on my head. How should I put it? You see me working with Sam. Some people get it. And some people are like, no, this is a fawn response. It's an abusive relationship and blah, blah, blah. This frustrates me. And I claim that this is part of an anti-intellectual and an anti-elitist culture that we live in, where we are the demos, the people, are obsessed with tearing everything to the ground. Tear it all down. If it's bigger than me, if it's taller than me, tear it to the ground and smash it to pieces. My relationship with Sam is no different than the relationship I have enjoyed with university lecturers and school teachers. I am from a privileged background in my education. I was sent to good private schools. Not many, but some of my teachers and lecturers are ex-Oxford and Cambridge. It is not a weird relationship, and certainly in the British private school system, for a student to seek information from a teacher who is eccentric or may even be seen by others as belligerent or be seen by others as confrontational. For God's sake, do you not think academia is riddled with people with personality disorders, especially at the highest levels? They're brilliant men and women, and they are brilliant in a way that makes you look at them and go, I don't think we're all evolving at the same pace. I think they've done something different with their evolution. My point with this is my biggest frustration at the moment, and it's a box I'd really like to shatter, is that Sam keeps getting put in this stupid internet cluster B personality disorder box. And he is one of, if not the most fluent human beings I've ever met on the subject of psychology. And if you get a chance to get counseling with him or coaching with him, I would be like, don't waste all your time talking about your horrible ex-husband or your horrible ex-wife. Talk about your life, because the guy knows what he's doing. He's very, 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 very good. He's high level, very, very high level. To wit, why did the client cross the road? No, why did this lady hire, who has identified, she says, my husband is absolutely a malignant narcissist, and I'm absolutely the victim of a malignant NPD. I said the word again. It's 10 push-ups every time. I will go to Sam Vaknin, who is renowned as a diagnosed narcissist and a diagnosed psychopath. Why go to him and then demand that he make her feel good? Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. It's like when people would come to me, or people come to my coaches, and it's like, it's the Spartan life coach. We expect discipline, we expect serenity, we expect consistent action taken over time. We expect you to face that which you fear with bravery and with an ability to cope, a robust, stoic attitude. And then what I found was people were getting really angry with me because I was very, very, very gentle when I would say to people, can I just stop you there? It sounds like what you're saying isn't quite true. And it sounds like, for example, it doesn't even sound like you believe it. This sounds like a defense mechanism. This sounds like you don't even really believe what you're saying. Can we talk about that? And people get really, really upset. Like, why is the Spartan life coach, the Spartan life coach, not patting me on the bottom and sending me back to sleep with my blue pill? I'm like, why would you come to me if that's what you wanted? Of anybody you could have gone to, why did you come to me? So similarly, with Sam, I'm like, why did she go to Sam Vaknin and then become enraged that he didn't give her the bum pats, the nice little, the pat on the bottom that makes you feel better, and the ego pump. So Sam mentioned the pumping up of people's egos. So the last thing I'd like to finish on is somewhat contrarian, and I'll raise this with Sam when I see him next week, and we'll record it, because Sam's going to be up in Liverpool for 8 days. And we're gonna film interviews. We're gonna do some live events. There's gonna be live streaming and stuff that you can get a hold of on here. But I'm actually gonna say to him, I have a suspicion that the ego pumping isn't useless. And I had this idea on 2 levels. Number one, there's a sincere piece of advice to any coach or therapist who watch. There may be, it's not a piece of advice. It's a suggestion ending in a question mark. There may be some value in saying to yourself, some of you have clients booked this week, so maybe you want to try this. Saying, for a session, when I speak to my client, I'm going to sandwich the session, if it's an hour long, with the first 7 minutes and the last 7 minutes, I actually am going to give them an ego pump. Ego pump sounds dismissive. I am going to ask them questions that lead the client back to seeing how they have worth in what they do, and to reaffirm who they are. We're calling it an ego pump. And that deliberately doing that with no other real purpose other than making the client feel good and more certain in their sense of self would have merit. But it's not just cheaply going, oh yeah, girl, I told you that guy was a dick. He doesn't even deserve you. That's not helpful. That's not helpful. And if all you get is that saccharine, perpetually positive feedback, it really, really can warp you over time. It's not helpful. It's much better if you have a friend or a colleague or a peer or a coach who can say to you, listen, which Sam will. He'll say, listen, mate. He says to me, he uses my, because I'm from the northwest of England, we call everybody mate. And he'll say, listen, mate. And I'll go, oh, he's going to tell me something now. He's going to give me some of that Israeli feedback. But you need it. You need it. I have had more insight from him giving me one of his, pulling me to one side and giving me a listen, mate, chat over like a pint or a glass of wine than I have in weeks and weeks and weeks and months of counselling and therapists, because they just don't have that level of insight. So my first suggestion is a completely sincere one, which is maybe there is actually some value in reaffirming the client's worth to themselves. Like, what have you been doing well? What are you really about? Before all of this happened, you were an artist, right? Or you were an accountant, right? And you built that accountancy firm up from nothing and you did really, really well. Whatever it is. And then at the end of the session, because you're going through stuff that is unpleasant, to reaffirm that, to send them back out into the real world. Because this like relationship, this chat it's an odd thing to do. You're getting more naked psychologically than some people do with a spouse of 10, 20, 30 years. So to send them back out into the world disrobed is maybe not a good idea. And maybe this like sandwiching the beginning of the session at the end of the session, we just go back to, you have value, you are capable, you have done things well in the past, you're struggling right now, but you will do things well again in the future. And then the second suggestion I had, which was slightly tongue-in-cheek, would be to actually say, okay, we're going to do an ego-pumping exercise where I tell you how fucking awesome you are. And in this space where there's only me and you, and we're not friends, you're paying me for my time, you tell me how it feels. You tell me how it feels. You tell me if it feels good for me to just ego pump you and be your cheerleader and go rah, 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 yeah, 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 you're the best. What did he say to you? What did she say to you? Oh, that girl's crazy. All women are crazy. It's like, don't even listen to her. Just like move on, mate. Just get with another girl. Or don't listen to that guy. He doesn't even deserve. All that ego pump stuff that's just fluff. It's candy floss. Then you could maybe introduce that into a session to say to a client, do you like this? Does it feel good? Is this what you came for? Did you come to me and pay this money and take the time out of your day for me to just tell you what I think you want to hear? Your grandmother can do this. Your best friend does this. Buy a dog. You don't need this. You don't need me if that's all you want. To then lead the client to the point where they go, yeah, I really don't need ego pump stuff, but to have a sense of humor about it and go, oh yeah, ego pumpy, not good. Honest, real, critical feedback I can do something with. And I have made major decisions in my life based on the honest, real, critical feedback that he's given me. Sam has rescued this project, the Spartan Life Coach, twice. Twice I've been ready to bin it, and he's said to me twice, well, he's just pulled me back from the brink and just gone, don't do that. You are doing good. Both times I became utterly convinced that I wasn't really doing any good, that I wasn't really helping anybody, and that the whole project had just been hijacked by the wrong uns, the Uruk-hai. And he's twice he's convinced me not to. So yeah, that's my feedback. As Sam has suggested, if you are going to go over onto his video and you are going to comment, he welcomes the comment. Don't make personal attacks on Sam there or here or on me, because it's trolling and you'll be blocked and your comments will be deleted. Don't be silly. And don't if you do go to his video and make a comment which he's asked for, don't personally attack the client. We don't know anything about this individual. There's no, you just don't. Just take it as a thought experiment. Look and say, okay, this is what I think is going on. This is what I think is not going on. These are where the gaps are. And let's just all take a bit of an honest look at what we're doing and why we're doing it. I have a couple of minutes left. If anybody wants to ask me any questions, now would be a good time to ask it. Please make it one sentence and end it with a question mark. That's the squiggle with the dot. Dunk at the bottom. That's the question mark. God, I talked for half an hour there. Bloody hell. Chad says, John Narder, I'm giving you a choice. Either put on the glasses or start eating that trash can. I already am eating from the trash can all the time. Nobody's going to get that. I think that's from the documentary that's called Zizek! And it's quite funny. Okay, here we go. Sunflower says, Richard, I disagree. People who are narc abused get zero ego pumping. How? Okay. How do you know that that statement is true? All people, all the time, everywhere? And we need it from somebody to try to equalize. Often I believe the therapist may be the only one in a position to do that. Yeah, so what I just said is one of the things that we could do is actually sandwich the session at the beginning and the end with something that reaffirms the person's value, their sense of self and who they are, and that therefore that would be useful. And I will bring that up with Sam, but that's not ego pumping. Ego pumping is just cheap and is just saying, yeah, you're right, he's wrong, bleh. What I'm talking about is actually saying, okay, come on now. Do things ever go right for you? Have you ever got through something before? Do you ever remember overcoming something that was made you feel afraid or made you feel like under pressure, and then you vanquished? You overcame it through bravery. You overcame it through work. You overcame it through whatever it was. So in that context, that type of righteous ego pump, yes, that would be useful. You can't say that everybody who's the victim of abuse is not receiving that, because you don't know that. You don't know. You can't speak on behalf. Like, just because, say, I'm the member of a particular interest group, you can't then assume. I can't just assume that my experience speaks to everybody's experience within the interest group. Angela says we can respect and trust people that speak the truth. Absolutely, absolutely. Pablo Emilio Escobar, hola Pablo, says, do you sniff cocaine? No, it was a Slavoj Žižek impression, and he's been asked if he snorts cocaine. I don't think he does. I think it's just there. It's just a habit. He's just got a habit of constantly, he pulls his own shirt and he ticks, pulls his nose, sniffs, and does weird stuff. But if I did sniff cocaine, Pablo Emilio Escobar, what would you do about it? Hi Richard, are you planning to do any live chats like you used to do? Do you mean like this one? Yes, I'm planning on doing it now, and I'm doing it now. This is a live chat, mate. I'm live. Miss Kismet says, I have no context, so I'm going cat or dog, question mark. Good question, Tavarish. Very good. How do you learn who to keep helping and who is just parasitic on us as coaches and burn you out? Well, that question came from Samantha. It depends on the context in which you're coaching, and I don't know how you choose to do it, but the way I do it and the way my coaches do it is we expect people to deal with a thing that is done in pretty much every session, which is as you're spitting your story out, to be stopped and to be told, "Whoa, just wait there 1 second. I want to hear everything that you have to say. But I know the elements of this story that I need, and you don't. You don't know what I need to help you. I'm really trying to, well, open the bonnet. I don't know what you call that in America, the thing that with the engine cover, so I can look inside the engine. So can I just stop you there for a second? I need to ask you this, I need to ask you this, and I need to ask you this." And if they're saying something where this piece doesn't add up to this piece, we actually say, one thing I've noticed about what you're saying is, on the one hand, you're saying that this is true, but on the other hand, you're also saying that this is true at the same time, and they can't both be true. And when you stop people and you interrupt their narrative and you tell them there are problems with their narrative, I would then just gauge the emotional response. If my desire is authentic and I just want to heal and get better and get on with my life, I won't stop you. It's awkward and it's uncomfortable to be stopped and questioned when I'm talking. It's not something I would do in normal conversation, but when I go to a doctor, it's also not something I would do in normal conversation, to pop my trousers off and just, be semi-naked with only the top half of me covered and my socks on. It's horrible. It's very demeaning. But I go through that pattern interrupting awkwardness because I'm not there really to have a chat with my doctor. I'm there to get fixed whatever needs to be fixed. So grade the emotion. Okay, so there's a video I did that said this is the easiest, fastest test for a cluster B. I think it's got like 1 million views now. And basically it was just me saying, just say no. Just politely say no. If somebody says to you, "Can you do this for me?" and you say no, or they say, "Can I have this from you?" and you say, "Listen, I understand why you want that, but this is the reason why I'm going to say no, and my answer needs to be no." And you politely but firmly say no, and they get really, really angry. And all of these are no's. All of these like little boundary checks where you go, "Can I stop you there for a second? I need to check." They're kind of a no. If they're getting really angry with that, then that's problematic. And when somebody's getting irritated with you, you'll know if somebody's getting like wound up by what you're doing. And then you just feel it. You go, okay, when I was giving them like just pure validation, I was getting this level of emotional response. And now that I'm questioning them, the emotional response is going this way. This ain't good. At that point, I would be looking to raise it with the client and say, "Look, I've noticed at the beginning of the session, we discussed this, this, and this, and you were fine. Now that I'm actually challenging you on some of the stuff that you're saying, you seem a lot less comfortable. Is there something you need to get off your chest? Is there a certain way this is making you feel? Do I need to change the way I'm asking you the questions? Because that could be the wind up, or is it the fact that you're being questioned? Let's talk about this." And again, if they're sincere, they should be happy for you to talk. Some of my friends are WhatsApping me, and I should turn my settings off. They're saying very silly things. Trish G says, "How about affirming what the client tells you?" Do you mean feeding it back to them? That's one way. It's one way of, if you mean feeding it back to them, it would be one way of Socratically moving things forward. So it'd be more of a Socratic method, would be to say, "Okay, what I think I am hearing you saying is," and then you feed it back to them. Again, a warning sign for somebody who's going to lead you to burnout is, how should I, okay. This is a fitness tracker. I think they're fairly useless for like monitoring steps and stuff, but I like wearing it at the gym and it tells me what my calories are. But I know that it can't really tell me what my true calories burned are, but I know that if I keep to a certain amount and a certain heart rate, I'll feel okay the next day. And if I go over that, I'll feel like the Walking Dead. What I heard you say is that you don't value it as a tracker and you don't really think that it's monitoring your calories properly, but you kind of use it as a performance thing when you're in the gym so that you don't do too much. My response: no, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. I said, I wear this because it has a GPS locator in it and I like to know exactly where I am at all times. Oh, I'm sorry, I must have misheard you. So actually the reason why you wear this is because it actually is a location tracker. No, no, that's not what I said. I said that I wear this only when I go to the gym so that it tracks. Do you see where I'm going with this? So if you get into a back and forth with somebody, and listen, this will happen when the person's narrative, ego-based narrative, I mean, we haven't got the time to go too deeply into it now, but if the ego-based story of what has happened is in conflict with what has really happened, then bits of the truthful memory leak through, and they will go into a conflicted state whilst recounting it to you. But it's very hard to move forward with somebody who changes their story every single time you ask them to reaffirm it. So do you mean this? And those of you who've seen me do last year doing the Instagram lives, I'd have people email me afterwards going, I don't know how you did that. That seemed exhausting. This is something that would happen very, very frequently on the Instagram lives, where I would be talking to people and offering some advice. So I'd say, are you saying X? And they go, no, I'm not saying X. Are you saying Y? No, I'm not saying Y. Are you saying Z? No, I'm not. So that again would be an indication that you could be dealing with a less than completely sincere endeavor to heal. Somebody said the person could just be confused. If a person is just confused, they will not assert with certainty, this is what I use the watch for. You say, what do you use this watch for? And you go, this is embarrassing. I can't remember. That's confusion. But if I say, I wear this watch because wearing a black watch frightens the devil away. And then you go, oh, so you're religious, you believe in the devil. And then they go, I'm a scientist, you idiot, I don't believe in the devil. You just said something about your watch. You go, no. So if you're getting a lot of blind alleys, a lot of catch-22s, I'm strongly asserting one thing, and then when I'm questioned on it, we move in another direction, then that can be really, really problematic. Somebody said sincerity can often be felt. True. And the lack of sincerity is often felt. So you just keep your spidey senses open and really tune into the person, really listen and really, really hear them, and that'll help. Mark Ferreira says, it sounds like word salad almost. If this person is on the spectrum and you keep pushing them for specifics, then you will descend into word salad next. That's my next strategy down from like denying what I just said, what I just asserted with absolute certainty 30 seconds ago, 30 seconds later I'm going, didn't say that, nor would I ever say that. Then you question me again, I will just descend into bibbledy-babbledy-boo, word salad. Is there any possibility the client might also be narcissistic? Asked Cheryl. Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said in the beginning, the beginning of the video, you know, Sam has pointed out that this might be best understood as a viral type of thing where you become infected, where the client can actually get infected, and then we have to consider the possibility of other issues that were pre-existing before the relationship. There is a concept that Sam talks about called inverted narcissism. You'd have to consider that and check for that. But yeah, absolutely, that can be the case. Untrapped Butterfly says, I just wanted to say thank you. Onegaishimasu. JK says, I love a nonsense chat WhatsApp group. So do I. It's one of the few things of social media I'm like, this is actually of value in my life. When you, Sunflower, as a person who was asking me before, yeah, when you've been gaslit for so long that seriously may be the best value of a therapist than anything else. I believe it's vital. Yeah, I think if you're talking about being gaslit for so long, rather than the therapist, if you want the opposite of gaslighting is not making you feel good. The opposite of gaslighting is bringing you back to reality, because gaslighting was taking you away into delusion, into a lie world. So the therapist, in a kind and loving and supportive way, I mean, there's no need for a therapist to like beat you up as you go, but it's wrong to have as a priority, well, you know, and is it? Yeah. Oh, and that's really not going to help you, especially when we're talking about this kind of work, because you've been beaten down, and I want to bring you up. But I need you to come up. I need you to come to me, because if I come to you, that is an externalized locus of control, and we're actually continuing one of the key elements of the abuse. So I would always be. I treat the client the way I want them to act. So I would always be somewhat more distant than the client wants me to be by just like a fraction. Somewhat less supportive than the client wants me to be by a fraction, so that they can't re-meld and re-merge to me. I've got to get my coaching session with him, because I can't feel good otherwise. I remember watching a documentary about David Koresh. I was quite young. It was like in the early 90s when I saw it. The guy who had the cult in Waco, and I don't know if it's true, but it probably is. They would talk about the people who are in the Branch Davidian cult would thirst for his sermons. There was like this messiah complex that he developed, and then he'd instilled this addictive need in them, and they would be like, I need the high of this. That's an abusive relationship. That is trauma bonding, to do that. So yeah, you're right. Like, there's a lot of scope, I think, for exploring this. It's not that if you've been made to feel like crap, maybe just at the sandwiching at the beginning and at the end of the session, and do something where I ask you questions, so you tell me why you're okay, where you tell me that you have value. Because if I tell you, it's externalized locus of control, and I'm trying to put the locus of control inside of you, so that when you don't have a coaching day with me, you can wake up in the morning and go, oh God, I feel like shit, I'm so depressed. And then the little voice goes, but do you remember who you are? Do you remember what your values are about? Do you remember what your goals are? Do you remember who you are as a human being? And you go, yeah, fuck, I'm so depressed. But you remember who you are, right? And you remember that you overcame stuff in the past. And you go, yeah, okay, it's time to put the socks on and go. That's a good end goal to have. And that's a good place to end it, guys. Thank you very much for your time and your attention. If you do go over to Sam's video and check it out, I highly recommend that you do. Please drop a comment there if you have feedback. You can disagree. You can absolutely disagree. But what you want to do is avoid any kind of ad hominem or personal comment. Just keep it like sane and clean and boundaried. All right, guys. Thank you very much. And I will speak to you soon.